Back then, the thing I wanted you to say.
I'm sorry, Zuko. I wish things were different.
The words I needed to hear.
It's him.
Young man,
That punch was amazing!
you too can become a hero.
Dreams can become reality.
Wow! Look at those moves!
That's right. Show who you are. Embody what it means to be a hero.
Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that this is the story of how I became the world's greatest hero.
Hello once again, watchers of good anime. My name is Nick Pell and this is my review of My Hero Academia Season 1. Now I know that Season 1 came out a couple years back down the road, but I have just recently decided to dive into this show. I pretty much binged through the first season today, or I guess yesterday now, and I wanted to do a review on it. So let's talk about the show, find out if it is worth the hype or if it just really falls flat. Also, just keep in mind that if you have not seen Season 1 of My Hero Academia, I will be touching on the majority of the first season in this review, including the ending of the season. So if you do not want spoilers, probably finish the season, come back and watch this video then. Now, the first season of My Hero Academia started out with 13 episodes, and the beginning of the season we are introduced to a boy named Deku. That's not his actual name, it's a nickname, but I'm not going to try to pronounce his full name. And he is a boy who grows up quirkless in a very quirk-filled world. Quirks, if you're not aware, are basically superpowers or abilities that people have begun to develop through mutations and just general human evolution. And one thing that I really enjoyed about how they do the quirks, it's not just very basic stuff like fire powers, ice powers, thunder powers, super speed, invisibility, super strength. They have some of those elements, but they name them various different things like explosions or engine if you're going to run fast or things of that sort. And so they make it unique and very unique to the show itself. And so I really appreciate that. It makes it kind of stand out from other comic book superhero-y things. But as I was saying, Deku is a boy who grows up quirkless, or basically he does not develop any sort of special abilities of his own. And he has this dream of being a hero, and in this world there are heroes and villains. Basically, as you would suspect, people who decide to use their powers for good are the heroes, people who decide to use them for evil are the villains. And heroes have these different work agencies. They can decide to be a sidekick for a pro-hero of sorts. It's a very complicated thing, I'm not going to get too into it. But Deku has a dream of being a hero. He has all the qualities of doing it. He just doesn't have any powers, and so he becomes very saddened by this, but he still wants to try to get into the Hero Academy and try to prove himself. This, as you would expect, is pretty much a doomed to fail type of proposition, and then he ends up meeting his most famous hero and his most favorite hero, All Might, who is this guy with super strength and can basically take down any opponent with his skills because he's the most powerful hero that they know of. Eventually, through a series of events, Deku ends up inheriting All Might's abilities, and he ends up being trained in use of All Might's abilities called the One for All skill, and ends up making it into the Academy for Heroes, and we get to see the show continue on from there. Now, Deku is a character who I very much enjoyed seeing on screen because he really embodies what I think a lot of people in this current modern age of like superhero films and all things of that sort of like heroes and villains and whatnot really wish that their lives could be, because myself included, I think there are people who just wish that they would wake up one day with a superpower and be able to go and be a hero, or if you are the other sense of mentality, you want to be a villain. And it's just something that would be very interesting to see the world develop into if for some reason, like 100 years or farther than that, however long it would take, that certain abilities like we see in comic book shows and movies and whatnot began to develop in real life. So Deku is really someone who I was able to relate to right off the bat because he embodies everything that you kind of wish you could become. The main thing that I really hope does end up changing with the now finished second season and the currently going on third season is Deku not being as scared of people and not really shaking when he's approached with a bad situation or something unexpected or something of that sort. Because I understand that these kids are all like 15 years old and whatnot, but I mean, they have superpowers, they're going into these very serious professional jobs. It kind of gets a little bit old when you have people being petrified of every little obstacle that comes in their way. One thing that I also really enjoyed seeing this season in particular focus on is Deku's relationship with Ketchum. I think that's how you say his name. I'm sorry if that's wrong. Ketchum is someone who has explosion-based powers, or basically fire abilities. He can cause explosions to occur in his hands, and basically his sweat, I believe, is able to be ignited, and that's how he manifests his powers. These two kids, they grew up together because they lived in the same neighborhood. Ketchum developed his abilities while Deku did not develop anything. And Ketchum ended up becoming something of a bully to Deku and just picked on him and basically called him worthless. And so once Deku develops this really incredible power, he becomes very jealous and enraged. And there's a scene once they're in the school and they're doing a training session where he basically goes full-out villain on this kid, just unleashing his full abilities on Deku, is trying to make him come at him with his full strength. And it really makes me wonder where this kid's path ends up lying, because he has all the signs that he's going to end up becoming a villain at some point in the show. I don't know if it's already happened, don't give me spoilers or anything, but he's able to become so infuriated, and during those couple episodes during the training, he just looks pure villainy-esque. But then we have episodes later in the show where he is acting with the heroes, he is defending people, and you see the heroic side to him, along with still being kind of a dick. But you do see the heroic qualities that he does have the capacity to showcase. So I'm very much curious to see where he ends up going as the story continues to progress. I also found All Might as a character very interesting as well, because after Deku begins to inherit his abilities, All Might's powers begin to slowly weaken over time, and so already he's limited to only being able to go into his All Might form for about 3 hours a day. And as Deku's powers begin to increase in power and size and whatnot, All Might's powers begin to lessen as a result. So I'm very curious to see what becomes of that character once Deku basically has full control of his abilities and is able to unleash that skill all on his own and basically leave All Might defenseless. See what happens with that character. Once we get into the school itself, we are introduced to a whole new batch of characters. As you would expect, we have some secondary characters which we see some primary characters. I'm not going to touch on everyone, honestly, this would be too long if I did. And I liked the teachers, especially the homeroom teacher. He's very, very interesting, and I really liked seeing him do battle during the last couple episodes where we have all the villains invading the training simulation. You get to see him as this kind of lazy teacher who's very strict as well, but you also get to see him just be a badass as well, as he's just taking down villains left and right. It's really cool to see him be displayed like that. The villain fight in general for like the last 4 or 5 episodes of the show, it is very well done, very exciting to see displayed. We can see the students have to improvise and basically be forced into a life or death situation for the first time much earlier on than they were really supposed to be introduced to such a thing. And it's really interesting to see how the different teams that they're split up to end up handling those various situations. It's really cool to see that play out. And one thing that I also really enjoyed just by the end of this season, you really do get a feel for what each character's quirk is, essentially. I don't know everyone's name because that's very tough for me with anime shows for some reason, unless it's some sort of long-running show like Naruto or something. But I can probably name the quirk with the character themselves, and so that was a really nice thing to be able to just see showcased, because during that villain fight we get to see everyone's powers be just shown off to some various degrees, and so you really do just get an idea of all the various range of abilities that people are possessing here. But as the season was 13 episodes, it is very fast paced for the most part, and they really just got to the villain fight and spent a lot of time on that fairly quickly as a result, again, of 13 episodes. But by the end of it, we have Deku and All Might recovering in the nurse's office. We have the homeroom teacher being basically in recovery because he got his ass handed to him. But for the most part, everything looks like it's gonna be a-okay for at least a short period of time until the creepy villain who can basically disintegrate your flesh and your being comes back with some sort of otherworldly force. I do also just want to commend the animation of the show. It also looks very, very good, especially during the fight scenes. That last fight with All Might versus the big beast monster thing, that looked fantastic because I really enjoyed seeing that fight just in general, because it just ended very coolly and you really get to see how powerful All Might really is when he just goes up past 100%, as well as seeing the different animations for the other various characters' abilities, such as showcasing an ice ability and the fire powers, and Deku using his basically punches with the One for All ability. It all looked very, very good, and I'm really excited to see what Season 2 has in store. I don't know how fast I'll watch that one through. I'll probably go a little bit slower just because it's twice as long essentially, and I don't really want to grind through the whole thing very quickly because I want to enjoy it. But let me know how you liked this review. Let me know if you want me to review Season 2 of My Hero Academia, and I will happily do that if I get enough feedback to do that. Make sure to let me know what you thought of the first season of My Hero Academia down in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your feedback. Also, just a heads up, I'm now doing written reviews for some video games. That link is down in the description down below. Check that out if you're interested. Like, favorite, comment, and subscribe once again if you so choose. I appreciate it immensely. And as always, my people, my name is Nick Pell. And once again, keep on watching.